That's what personally I think is going on here. And that's where they get Ethiopian from. Both the story of Solomon and Sheba and the mix-up between Sheba and Saba. Saba meaning bathers, ritual bathers. And that's the third protected group in Islam that even the Muslims have forgotten who they are, because there are no sub-hands around for them to protect. But in any case, Muhammad talks about the third group. And I think Muhammad traveled to northern Syria. I think he knew the traditions of northern Syria. He got up there in the caravan trade. Muslim sources said he was in the caravan trade. We know he got to Iraq. The question is, how far up in Iraq did he go? And I think he went pretty far north in Iraq. He came in touch with, certainly, Manichaeans, which was the next tradition on from some of these other groups, following Mani, who came from a daily bathing. Mani, the founder of Manichaeism, was one of these people from a family in 200 some odd AD from southern Iraq. And then he started a new version of that called what we now call Manichaeism, which became very widespread. And Islam then follows upon Manichaeism. Mani saw himself as the last of the prophets and so on. But this is where Muhammad plugged in and got the material we now find in the Quran. It's very complicated. No one will ever believe it. You'd have to do a lot of background work to convince yourself of it, and the number of people in the world who, certainly Muslims, Jews, and Christians, who are willing to do this work are almost nil. So you're not going to convince anyone of these things, but I think this is the case. So that's where I think why so much is underneath the surface of this Ethiopian people. Well, let's go on. Then we come, the book then switches back to let's see, Saul again, and the vision he has on the road to Damascus, which, as I said, I think that explains where the Arabian thing comes from in Galatians. It's not here. Here he just goes to Damascus and causes trouble there, as it's put here in chapter 9. And he, as Paul increased, 9:22, in strength, he confounded the Jews living in Damascus, and so on and so forth. And as usual, we did this. The Jews plotted to kill him, supposedly, and the Jewish plots to kill everyone are always there. The only odd thing is, how come James is functioning for 20, 30 years in Jerusalem and nobody's bothering him? So there's something more than this supposed plotting that to kill people. Paul has to be doing something that is distressing some people, the way others are not, and that's then, to my mind, retrospectively presented as Jesus doing the same things. I don't even know who Jesus was, so I can't say, but do I think historical Jesus, if we can get a hold of him, did these things that Paul was doing? I absolutely don't think so. And anyway, Paul never does get killed, as you know, by any Jews, because he's always got Romans rescuing him because of his Roman citizenship. So Jesus didn't have a Roman citizenship, but in any case, James would be more like Jesus to my mind, because James stays in the land, is functioning, is supposed to be a close relative. And if we want to know about Jesus, to my mind, we should look to James, not to Paul. But the world, as I've gone on over and over again saying, and that's why I'm so interested in James, the world thinks we should look to Paul's view. And the Gospels and Acts basically are Paulinized. Here and there, something else shines through. But we're definitely dealing with Paulinized material. By the time we get to the church under Eusebius, it's totally Paulinized. I mean, Eusebius is just a cookie cutter version of Paul. And that's it up until Martin Luther, who's not much different. It's some of the evangelical groups, and more recently, you go back to the Old Testament, that things shift a bit in their outlook. But even they, because of all the different conflicting literature, have a difficult time figuring out where they stand. And I wouldn't be able to help them, because you can't hold two, as what Lincoln's saying, gets it from the Gospels, a house divided against itself cannot stand. You can't hold two opposing views of what the Christ was and expect to be able to harmonize them and stand in one whole. And that's one of the problem is any modern person dealing with this If you hold on to one set of documents while trying to make sense of another set of documents, the whole thing evaporates in front of you because you can't reconcile conflicting documents. So you have to take a stand on this if you're a care, if you're a believer, and don't claim to be a believer, but I certainly have taken a stand, and my stand is on the Jamesian side. And you can take a stand whichever side you think is right. John the Baptist side, Jesus side, Paul's side, Eusebius side, whichever side is appropriate, but I make no bones to you, I'm on the James side. You'll let me be there. Hope you don't object too much. Okay, so, because I think that's more accurate what happened in Palestine. And it looks like the Dead Sea Scrolls also. So now we have the scrolls, we have the James. So I think there is weight there to argue that, whereas before maybe it would have been a little less convincing. Now I think there's a lot of weight behind it for those people who cared to look. In any case, we get the picture here of Paul going up to Jerusalem and preaching fearlessly, and again the Jews plotting to kill him, and so here it's the Grecian. Here it's I guess it isn't so much the Jews in line 29. It's the Hellenists again, and I don't know what the Hellenists any more than the Stephen episode are upset about Paul. So this Hellenist to me is a code. I think it's the Zealots is what it's really saying, not the Hellenists. The same as Canaanite is a code for Canaan, Zealot, Canaim. So I think that a Hellenist is also a code. In any event, we get the glue here, and Paul takes off, goes abroad, according to the letters, for 14 years. Never comes back again, though Acts has him come back again before 14 years. Galatians says he didn't come back for 14 years, right? We all have read Galatians together, we know that. Okay, so now we're up to speed. I wasted some time reviewing, I hope you don't mind, it's very important stuff. We're back to the Peter story. Peter is on his way down to Lydda. I guess we're supposed to recall that Peter was messing around here in Samaria with Simon Magus. Lydda is here. How many have been to Israel, Palestine, Jerusalem? Holy Land. Well, when you fly in, Noelle has, she can say, where do you land, Noelle, on the airplane when you fly in from the Mediterranean into Israel?
Tel Aviv.
Yeah, but it's not Tel Aviv. What's the airport called?
Ben Gurion.
Yeah, they changed the name.